Okay.
Welcome everybody. Good day to you. Good afternoon from local here. This is Malaysian time here at 2:35 p.m. And good wherever you are, we're listening to throughout the world. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening. My name is Raymond, and I'm the moderator. My co-moderator is Boyd Jorman, and we are here to host this forum together. And we're going to have a smooth and on-time session, and we will complete it hopefully by 4:30 p.m. local time. So today's forum is about we name it as Borneo Forum 13, mainly because we have done the 12 other sessions, similar session last year, and we usually hold this session on final Saturday of each month. So every time we talk about the strong topical and current theme, which is relevant. So Borneo Forum 13 is simply titled as Sabah Way Forward, the Rise of Borneo. And as the title suggests, this forum aims to address what is the way forward for Sabah in its future development and the status in the context of Borneo, in the context of Malaysia and globally. So today we are indeed privileged to have five very fine, excellent, well-experienced speakers throughout Sabah. And they are well established in their own profession, their own expertise, and their credential and reputation. So we will introduce them as we go along these forums. But before that, I would like to invite the CEO of the Borneo Organization Limited, Mr. Kenneth Dustin Kundayan, to give his opening remarks. Over to you.
Thank you Raymond. Terima kasih Raymond kerana sudi menjadi pengatur cara hari ini. Saya akan berbicara bercampur-campur bahasa Malaysia, bahasa Indonesia dan juga Inggris. Maaf kalau yang dari Kalimantan kurang biasa dalam bahasa Inggris. Selamat datang Pak Wilson. Thank you very much for being here. This is such a privileged situation where we have really prominent speakers, prominent people such as Tan Sri, Simon Sipang, Datuk James, and the rest to share our thoughts on this very, very, very important and topical topic now, Sabah Way Forward. My name is Ken Dustin Kundaya. I'm originally from Limbahau, Papar, Sabah, Karazan Dusun, yeah. And I am based in London at the moment. I train as a lawyer and also used to be a university lecturer. I'm still an academic as well as a visiting scholar in London University and also Oxford University. And also, I am a vice president of a fintech company in the UK, a worldwide company. We started this Borneo Forum way back, the virtual version, in the School of Oriental and African Studies, SOAS in London, where we meet, a small number of us meet up, discussing about the future of Sabah primarily and Borneo, Sarawak and the whole Borneo generally. And with the pandemic, of course, that stopped, and then we pick it up as a virtual version around October 2020. And now we are in our actually 14th session, so to speak, but it is a 13th session. The first one was not a formal one. So what is the vision and the mission of Borneo Organization and Borneo Forum? It is non-political. It's non-political, although we do cover political topics, but not in the political manner of, so to speak. But our mission is to promote the connections between all the provinces in Borneo, especially Sabah, Labuan, Sarawak, Brunei, and all the 5 provinces in Kalimantan, Kaltim, Kaltara, Kalsel, Kalbar, Dan, and Kaltara. Yeah, so 5 provinces, so that we connect, we build a network, and we get to know each other, because we as a Borneans or even Bernesians, we are separated by history. And because of history, the Dutch being in Kalimantan, the British being in Sarawak and Sabah and Borneo, that dictated our trajectory to the future. That's not a political statement, but what I'm saying is that because we are separated by history, we did not kind of really work together closely because of the history as well. And now is the time. Now is the time that we get together, work together in terms of economics, social, and cultural aspects. And this is the objective of Borneo organization, Borneo Forum. As I said, it's not a political organization. We want to create this network of all the provinces and all organizations, individual businesses together so that we go forward in our mission to promote, develop Borneo sustainably, and also protect our environment, our people, and our future. Because we believe only the Borneans, Bernesians who care for our land, our motherland, and without even being political, just as a pan-Borneo organization to connect each other and work as if we are one big entity. Because Borneo is such a well-known brand, very well-known brand around the world, and this is our chance to work together now. We have the IKN, Ibu Kota Negara baru, called Nusantara. Sudah dinamakan, ya, sudah dinamakan Nusantara. What a beautiful name. And that is going to be very, very, very significant for us because we are going to be visiting Nusantara. Let's go to Nusantara, and we're going to start almost behaving like almost one big, lovely family. So that's going to be great for us to have this major location in Kaltim to visit. IKN is our major topic as well as BNP IAGA, as well as the environment. We're heavy in environment. We have a lot of projects going on and small projects going on as well. So this is not just it is a not-for-profit organization, but we also have a for-profit organization based on a social enterprise model. So I do not want to prolong this. Thank you very, very much for all the speakers for agreeing to be part of this. Thank you for the host. And thank you very much for Mr. Simon Punai, our Vice President for Borneo Forum and Borneo Organization, and also our Chief Marketing Officer. Over to you, Raymond. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you for sharing the vision of Borneo Forum. Thank you also for uniting us together and create that conversation starter to spearhead what is the possible future for Borneo, Sabah in Borneo context. Okay, before I introduce our very first speaker, he is no stranger. I think most of you all will know him. He is none other than Tan Sri Simon Sipang. He's a very well-known public figure and throughout Sabah, without a doubt. Now, on his shoulders, there are unparalleled story and history about Sabah. Having lived through during the Japanese era, all the way to formation of North Borneo, then Malaysia, he'll be sharing about his experience and his knowledge about Sabah. And briefly, I want to mention that Tan Sri is a former Sabah State Secretary. He's the Vice Chairman of the Malaysia Rights Commission, also known as SUAKAM. He's also the founding chairman of the Society for the Promotion of Human Rights, also known as PROHAM. He's the founding chairman of the Center to Combat Corruption and Cronyism, also known as C4. And he is the vice chairman of the Outward Bound Sabah. So I'm sure there's a lot of new things that he's going to share, and I'm sure and I'm excited that this information is quite new to some of our viewers today. And without further ado, I would like to invite now Tan Sri Simon Sipang to deliver his presentation. Tan Sri.
Thank you, Raymond. I thank the organizers for your invitation to share thoughts on the topic British North Borneo to Sabah and the promise of Malaysia. When I was in school during the mid-50s, our teacher used to ask us to write essays identifying the pros and the cons of federating the British Borneo territories of Sarawak, Brunei, and North Borneo to form one country. It was a pity that this idea was never pursued. This would have been a more natural grouping and realistic than Malaysia was. Their combined wealth and potential resources, including oil and gas, would have made it one of the richest in the region. They were also located within the same landmass or geographical landmass. In 1961, I was still studying in New Zealand. I remember my political science lecturer saying that the Prime Minister of Malaya, Tunku Abdul Rahman, in the course of a speech to the Foreign Correspondents Association of Southeast Asia in Singapore on 27th of May 1961, casually mentioned the possibility of a closer political and economic cooperation among Malaya, Singapore, and the Borneo territories of North Borneo, Sarawak, and Brunei, all of which were British colonies at the time. I did not expect personally at the time the idea would ever materialize. As far as North Borneo was concerned, I was not aware of any immediate response from local leaders specific to Tunku's proposal. I have also not heard of any leader or group of leaders who opposed or supported the proposal. The people of North Borneo were not politically conscious. There was no political party in North Borneo until August 1961, when the first political party, the United Kadazan National Organization, UNCO, was formed. I did hear news, though, that the Chinese in Sarawak were not receptive to the idea, especially the left wing of the Sarawak United People's Party. North Borneo students at Victoria University in Wellington, New Zealand, where I was studying, generally were suspicious of the idea and were not in favor. They felt that it could be just a change from one colonial master, the British, to another, the Malayans. I was keen to follow the political developments in North Borneo at the time as a matter of academic interest, as I was majoring in political science, and one of the subjects that I was doing was federalism. My lecturer was keen to discuss it and followed its development because it was history and federation in the making. It was what I call a real life situation. When Malaysia turned 50 years old, I was asked by reporters how I felt when Malaysia came into being on the 16th of September, 1963. My spontaneous response was, it was one of the saddest days of my life. They were surprised and asked me why. I said because North Borneo, as Sabah was then known, lost the only opportunity to experience being a truly independent and sovereign nation with the ability to determine its own destiny with its own seat in the United Nations. This was my idea of independence. This is something North Borneans and or Sabahans never had. To many Sabahans, the formation of Malaysia was simply a transfer of power from Britain to Malaya, meaning from one colonial master to another. The literacy standard was low, to say the least, and the people generally did not understand what was happening and what were at stake. There was no referendum. The Cobold Commission was merely a commission of inquiry. At best, Sabah was not represented in the commission. It only interacted with a selected few to suit and fulfill what the British intended to take place. Its report concluded that 1/3 supported the idea, 1/3 were in favor, provided there were safeguards, and the remaining 1/3 divided between those who preferred North Borneo to gain full independence first, and those who rejected the formation of Malaysia outright. There was no consensus of opinion, but it was interpreted that the formation of Malaysia was supported by the people. The political union between Malaya and North Borneo was artificial. They had more divisive than uniting factors. North Borneo's case, in my view, could not be compared with Singapore. Singapore was geographically part of Malaya. At the time, it made sense for the two nations to federate. For Singapore to go it alone was not an option. Malaysia came at least 10 years too early, in my view, insofar as North Borneo was concerned. There was an unnecessary rush. When the formation of Malaysia was debated, the people were carried away with slogans like Merdeka without realizing what it actually entailed. I remember many of our community leaders were flown to Malaya to see for themselves what progress Malaya had achieved since gaining independence from the British on 31st August 1957. Naturally, their expectation of Malaysia went up sky high. The promise of Malaysia was conveyed subsequently by the eye-catching slogan of Vision 2020. By the year 2020, Malaysia was going to be a fully developed country. Well, 2020 has come and gone. All the expectations, hopes, and promises of Malaysia remain a distant dream and janji terang bulan. After 58 years that Sabah had been part of Malaysia, let me just highlight some post-Malaysia legacies inherited by Sabah. Sabah is fondly referred to as the land below the wind. Now it can easily qualify to be called the land of illegal immigrants. They have permanently altered the social, economic, cultural, political, and demographic landscape of Sabah. It is indeed the mother of all problems in Sabah. The reverse takeover has long begun. The invasion that took place at Kampung Tanduo in Lahadatu on the 9th of February 2013 was an attempt, in my view, as direct takeover. Next, the system of government, which is federal in form, but unitary in substance. Political autonomy is debated, but Sabah lacks financial autonomy. Political autonomy without financial autonomy, in my view, is meaningless. Whoever controls the purse calls the shot. That is the reality. Now, under point 3 of the 20-point memorandum, the Constitution of Malaysia should be completely new document and should not be a series of amendments to a constitution. This was never honored. In the event, the Malayan constitution is masquerading as the Malaysian constitution. Malaysia was a new country altogether. It deserves a new flag, a new national anthem, and a new constitution. According to the 2010 World Bank report, Sabah is the poorest state in the country, although Sabah is very rich in natural resources, including oil and gas. I understand Sabah remains the poorest state up to the present. Something is just not right. I was told by a very senior UN official in Kuala Lumpur that at least 50% of poor people in the country are found in Sabah. Sabah's oil was taken over by Petronas in 1976. Compared to Malaya, basic infrastructure facilities such as roads, water, electricity, and internet connection are far behind. The same can be said for healthcare and educational facilities. Overdose of politics based on race and religion. In North Borneo, you hardly heard of corruption, yet there was no such thing as anti-corruption agency. Malaysia allocates almost 300 million ringgit per annum to reduce or eradicate corruption. The result, corruption is becoming a way of life. There are laws which allow government to arrest citizens without open trial. No such laws ever existed in North Borneo. Unlike today, the civil service in North Borneo was more multiracial and reflective of the racial composition of society. Meritocracy was observed and practiced. Next, inadequate attention to the observance and practice of good governance. Next, unfair distribution of development funds. In the 2022 budget, for example, Malaya gets a whopping more than 300 billion ringgit, whereas just 5 billion for Sabah. I remember just one project in Kuala Lumpur got an allocation of 5 billion. Just one project in Kuala Lumpur. Malaya, by any standard, is a lot more developed. Next, bloated civil service and government ministers and highly paid advisors comprising from the majority race and religion. Affirmative action policy created by the majority race, which already controlled everything and anything associated with the government for their benefit, as well as interpreted and implemented by them. Next, forced conversion. Next, confiscation of the Bible. Prohibition of the use of the word Allah. And I believe that is not even a Malay word. Some Malay leaders have been reported to refer to Malaysia as Tanah Melayu, indicating that this country is merely Greater Malaya and Ketuanan Melayu applies. Fortunately, there are in the minority, but enough to cause discomfort among Sabahan. I believe also some government forms indicate 4 boxes, one each for Malays, Chinese, Indian, and others. These ideologies were never practiced or heard of in North Borneo. This is definitely not conducive to the promotion and maintenance of national unity and integration. If a box is necessary, in my view, there should be only one. And the list continues. Because of time factor, I need to stop there. But before I do that, just let me mention some doable suggestions as a way forward. Despite what I have said, I remain optimistic about the future of the country. My hope for the future depends on the youths of today who will be tomorrow's leaders. I believe they can rise above race and religion. But in the final analysis, it is the voters who decide the people who govern. They deserve the government they elected. It's no use electing a government and then just complain for the next 5 years. So before you vote, you must think properly that that is the government that is eligible, qualified to govern the country. The state government should let the federal government know the exact amount due to the state government based on the constitution, which is still in arrears. If the federal government is unable to settle it in one go due to financial constraint, then payment by installment could be negotiated. In respect of current revenue collection, what is due to the state government should be diverted at source to Sabah. Inability to pay via this method does not arise. So the federal government has no more excuse of financial constraint and things like that. Now, the mother of all problems, the illegal immigrants. They are a federal government agenda for Sabah. They are a national problem, but shouldered by Malaysian in Sabah. This is unfair. They should be shared among all states in Malaysia on equal basis. The RCI report was released in Kota Kinabalu on the 3rd of December 2014. 7 years had come and gone. We should be told to what extent their recommendation have been acted on and implemented. The state government should gazette. Next, the state government should gazette as many state roads in Sabah as possible as federal roads. Meritocracy should be observed and practiced. Periodic review should be carried out on the civil service. For example, it is high time for the valuation unit and the town planning branch of the Land and Surveys Department to exist and operate as separate entities. The dependency of Sabah on foreign labor needs to be addressed seriously, such as planning and providing training and incentives to local youth to replace foreign labor. There must be zero tolerance on corruption. It is very costly. The government must not forget that it is a trustee of the people who elected it. It administers and manages public funds and subject to many rules and regulations to minimize, if not eliminate, abuses. The government is duty-bound to be transparent, responsible, and accountable. Top priority must be given to the eradication of poverty, creation of employment opportunities, and the provision of basic infrastructure facilities. No one or community should be left behind because of race, religion, or belief. Love and loyalty to the country is a two-way traffic. The government cannot expect the people. The government cannot expect from people if it treats people unfairly. Tourism is a sunrise industry. Government must improve tourist infrastructure facilities. Leadership plays a critical role in the progress of a country. Malaysia needs a Mandela type of leadership. He was against domination by any race. Although he had the option, he never advocated black supremacy. Now moving forward, political stability is a must. This country urgently needs anti-hop laws. Without them, political stability will remain to be an elusive dream. We need to choose either the interest of the leaders who leapfrog or the interest of the thousands whose trust was betrayed. Closer cooperation and understanding between Sabah and Sarawak political leaders need to be strengthened when it comes to claiming their respective legitimate rights. Unfortunately, this is easier said than done at the moment. I do not believe, but I do believe rather that this can be achieved cannot be achieved through the current leaders we have, but I'm confident that the younger generation will be able to achieve it. Mr. Moderator, thank you very much, and I thank the audience for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Tan Sri. That was a very, very good opening, and I wanted to just congratulate you on that for giving us a really big eye opener, in my view, in terms of what we have done, what we didn't do. We, in this case of Sabahans and our government, as well as visions or promises for the future. So thank you so much for for giving us a very good and very honest, and I think to your heart, in terms of giving that view, because it's from you that we learn and we draw attention on what we need to do next for the next 50, 100 years from now, what we can do. So thank you, Tan Sri. I will go to the next speaker, another very prominent champion of Sabah, in the form of Dr. James Ligunjang. There's not much to say about Dr. James because I think most Sabahans know him very well, of course, and his work. And it's good to know that he's also a very strong proponent of what we love about Sabah and want to, in terms of the people themselves. So only a few things to say about him as we move on. Dr. James is a former legislator and founder of Hormati Perjanjian Malaysia 63 movement, as of course already been spoken slightly just now. Currently, he's engaged as executive secretary of Parti Cinta Sabah, Love Sabah Party. So Dr. James, I give the floor to you. Your talk is on Malaysia Agreement 63 and the historical grievances. So again, ladies and gentlemen, and the audience, this gives us another opportunity, if you like, to see the background of what this discussion is all about today and the Q&A later on, and how we move forward from here. It's very good and important and necessary to have a background of what is happening in Sabah. But the next bit now, of course, is how do we move forward from there? But for now, Dr. James, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Boyd. Good afternoon, and thank you to Borneo Forum for giving me the privilege to share my thoughts on MH63 and how we move forward from here. And before that, let me wish all participants, panelists, a wonderful Konghi Fat Choi, and with the hope that you will be blessed with prosperity and happiness. Let me give you a synopsis of what I will be talking about. I will touch briefly on the historical events that lead to the formation of Malaysia and what are the important elements in the Malaysia Agreement and how we should pursue our rights in the Constitution based on the Malaysia Agreement. As Tan Sri Simon mentioned, the idea of the formation of Malaysia was first mooted by Tunku Abdul Rahman during the press luncheon in Singapore in May 1961. This was noted by the British authorities, whose interest is also to decolonize their colonies because of the resolution of the United Nations and because of the financial burden of Great Britain caused by the Second World War. So they are very, very much in a hurry to decolonize. So this was picked up by the British, and this culminated in the discussion at what we call now Malayan, what I call meeting in London from the 20th to the 22nd, where there was where Harald Macmillan, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Tunku Abdul Rahman, and several of his Malayan ministers attended the talks in exploring the possibility of creating the Federation of Malaysia. 2 days of talks was then reported to the British Parliament on the 28th November 1961 by Duncan Sandys, if I can remember very well, in the British Parliament, with whom he reported that after 2 days of talks, there was an expressed intention to form the Federation of Malaysia, together with the Federation of Malaya, Singapore, Sabah, North Borneo, Sarawak, and Brunei. That are the sovereign nations to form a federation. there was never mentioned there was annexation of Sabah and Sarawak to be the 12th and 13th states. There was never the intention expressed that Sabah and Sarawak to become vassal states of the Federation of Malaya. And that's what is the situation we have today. So after the events of 1961, this led to a series of discussion that led to the formation of the Cobble Commission on April 1962 to verify the wishes of the people of Sabah and Sarawak, where they agreed to the formation of Malaysia. As mentioned by Tan Sri Simon, 1/3 only agreed, 1/3 was against, and 1/3 was neutral for Sabah. So there was no majority decision to go in the formation of Malaysia. However, this was reported that the Sabah is favorable in the formation of Malaysia, and this resulted in the formation of the Intergovernmental Committee. This is where it is very important that every one of us to understand what is the function of the Intergovernmental Committee during the time. That was formed on 30th of August 1962, before they signed the Malaysia Agreement on the 29th of July 1963. The function of this Intergovernmental Committee was to study the whole spectrum of the conditions and also responsibilities of the Sabah's participation and Sarawak participation in the Federation. They form 4 principal committees. One is what they call the Constitutional Subcommittee of the Intergovernmental Committee to look into the constitution of the new federation. So because of the limitation of time, because the idea is to launch Malaysia on the 16th of September 1963, there is not much time for them to promulgate a new Malaysian constitution. So it was decided by the Constitutional Subcommittee to adopt the current federal constitution of Malaya and to provisions on the safeguards for Sabah and Sarawak. There was also agreed, it was also agreed that a new Malaysian constitution will be established after we form Malaysia. Unfortunately, until today, it is now 59 over years that we don't have a new Malaysian constitution. And this is one of the principal non-compliance of Malaya towards our federation. Second, this legal and judicial subcommittee of the Intergovernmental Committee. This judicial and legal committee is to look into the laws of the country. And it was decided that will have their own court system, will have its body. With that time, the Privy Council will be the appellate court for Sabah, Sarawak, and Malaya. But what happened today? They have removed the Borneo High Court and created the Sabah Sarawak High Court, which is subject to the appellate court of Malaya, the federal court of Malaya, and remove our appeal to the Privy Council. So there you are. There's another non-compliance. And the other one is the most important one was a fiscal subcommittee. I want everyone to remember that the primary consideration for Sabah to join Malaysia, to join in the formation of Malaysia, was that 40% of all federal income must be returned to Sabah as our catalyst to develop Sabah and empower the wealth of the people of Sabah. Given all these resources. So what happened? Itu 40% pun tidak sampai-sampai. From 1969 until today, there was no financial review. I will talk more about this, our entitlement, later in my explanation. Then we have the Public Service Subcommittee. This is where the issue of Borneoization come about. This is included in the 20 points. That all the positions of this legal the Sabah civil service was to be Borneoized for the British and also other foreigners who were holding that positions before. What happened now is that, and also the administration of the state was generally supposed to be restricted to all Sabahans, Sabah affair. But what happened now? A lot of the federal departments headed by about 70-80% headed by non-Sabahans. Bukan saja bawa dia orang punya ketua, dia bawa dia punya clerk pun bawa. There are some even drivers are from Peninsula. This is other state. So Borneoization is no longer there. It's never there. So these are the thing, and then they had this what they call the departmental organization subcommittee. This deals with responsibilities of the federal and the state. That's why they come about this federal list of responsibilities, the state list of responsibilities, and a concurrent list of responsibilities. But unfortunately, most of our lists are taken away by the federal, even from the concurrent list, like tourism is in the concurrent list. So they collect most of this tourism tax, where a lot of issues that needs to be addressed if we want to make Malaysia right. So after this when all this were agreed, then on the 29th of what I call July, then the Malaysia agreement was signed in London, which led to the Malaysia Act on, if I remember very well, on the 31st of July 1963, that permitted, that allowed the government of Britain to transfer the responsibilities to the new Federation of Malaysia. So that's how the Malaysia Agreement came about. So as Tan Sri was mentioned, whether the party signatories to the Malaysia Agreement was sincere in pursuing all that was agreed and written down in the Malaysia Agreement. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, Malaya from the very beginning has been deceiving Sabah and Sarawak to believe that we are equal partners. From the very beginning, we've never been equal partners. it was their very clear intention. There has this neocolonization policy that include Sabah and Sarawak to be the 12th and 13th state. That's why Sabah will never be at the same level with Malaya. But what is important during this time is Sabah and Sarawak must look into their rights in the federal constitution. Sabah is the only state that has this provision of 40% entitlement. The only state that all federal income from Sabah, 40% of it must be returned to Sabah for our development. And ladies and gentlemen, these are in the billions. How much do we receive every year on this entitlement? Only 26.7 million. Do you believe that? And how much is collected by the federal government from Sabah? In billions. Now let us understand what is federal revenue. As stipulated in Article 112C of the Federal Constitution, it states most of the federal revenues you can't itemize, like income tax. That is federal revenue. Custom and excise tax. Just 3 days ago, the Custom and Excise Department of Malaysia reported they collected 40.2 billion of custom tax last year. I would envisage at least 10 billion come from Sabah. And I would, if 40% is to be returned, at least we have 4 billion from custom. That is just an example. 4 billion, tapi kita dapat is peanuts. 26.7 million. This is ridiculous. We also entitled to receive the GST or SST. At least 40% from GST because that become a federal income. Tapi kita dapat kosong. And federal departments in Sabah collect also income. GPJ collect. Kau kena fine is part. 40% of it should be us. Police. Kau kena tangkap, kena fine. Whatever fine you get, 40% for us. Felda, FECRA, all these federal corporations, they earn here. They have plantations here. Whatever income they have, 40% should be ours. And the trading companies from Malaya operating in Sabah or from Sarawak operating in Sabah, we earn that 40%. The petroleum tax imposed by the federal government on Petronas, we are entitled 40%. The dividend of Petronas to the federal government, we are entitled 40%. So, calculate as far as the 40% is concerned, we should be entitled billions of ringgit every year. But what happened? Article 112C(b) states that every 5 years, we should have a financial review. You know, in 1965, Sabah received its first entitlement on the 40% valued at 4.9 million. So it continued to reach about 22 million in 1965. Sorry, 1968. So the first review was conducted in 1969. This is where they were established that the entitlement for Sabah and Sarawak was 21, I think the big figure was 26.7 million, 20 million. From 1965 to 1968, in 1968, we received 22 million. You see, di sana pun dia orang sudah tipu kita. 1968, 22 million. Tiba 1969, we got only 20 million. I mean, there's a discrepancy after 1 year. Instead of increasing, our entitlement was decreased to 20 million. So the Constitution says that this amount will remain as it is until the next financial review. So in 1969, it was agreed that there will be an incremental amount at the rate of 7.5% until the next financial review. So from 20 million in 1969 to expectedly to have a financial review in 1975, that figure reached to 26.7 million. In 1975, we're supposed to have the next review to establish how much is Sabah entitlement as provided, stipulated in the federal constitution.
Dr. James,
But fortunately,
I'm giving you 2 more minutes.
oh God, give me another 5 minutes. This is very important.
Okay, thank you.
That financial review never happened. And the 26.7 million is frozen in time until today. So this is the problem. This is the main problem for Sabah. This should be the main item that should be pursued by the state government and leaders of Sabah. Because without the 40%, we'll continue to beg to the federal government for funds. With the 40%, you will have billions of ringgit every year, enough to develop our schools, to develop our infrastructures, and create a new industries for the state, to the empowerment of the people of Sabah. Other issues that I need for grievances of Sabah is based on Act 354. This Act 354 is the delegation of the position of the head of state from negara to negeri. This is very important because this is unconstitutional. It's against with the provision of Article 159 and also Article 161 of the Federal Constitution, which expressly said that there should be no attempt to change the position of Sabah and Sarawak in its admission to the Federation of Malaysia. So this changes from negara to negeri is very important. Why? It relates to, I give you one example, the PDA 1974. And this Act 354 was passed in 28th of August 1976. When the PDA Petroleum Development Act was passed, we were still a negara. And when we are still negara, it means we are a sovereign state. And Tun Razak has no authority to vest authority to Petronas to give rights to Petronas in perpetuity to control our oil resources. This is the legal aspect of it. They have no right at all. The other thing that I need to highlight is Act 750, our territorial integrity, the expansion of our territory. You see, in 1954, there was this order of council by the British Parliament that the territorial boundary of Sabah extend to the continental shelf. But it was amended through Act 750 that restrict Sabah's territorial jurisdiction to 12 nautical miles. What does it signify? It means a lot because most of our oil resources beyond 12 nautical miles. What it means is Petronas, the federal government, can deny us any royalty or cash payment on oil resources. Also that even the 40%, our 40% entitlement on all the Petronas income and oil resources, they can choose not to give to Sabah because of Act 750.
James, I have to stop you now.
So,
That's okay?
if we move 3 minutes, the way forward.
I have to move on. Otherwise, we have the other
Yeah, the
speakers
move forward.
waiting. Just to move forward, one sentence, please.
Yeah,
Dr.
is
James,
that-
you can
Madam.
take 3 minutes from me. Kau ambil si 3 minutes, kau punya very important. Thank you.
Go
to
on.
move forward, one, Sabah and Sarawak must have a close rapport. They must continue to discuss the position within Malaysia. Second, the Sabah and Sarawak should form a parliamentary caucus committee at the parliamentary level to properly scrutinize every bill that is supposed to be tabled in parliament so that we can understand the ramification and the repercussion of every bill. Because most of our parliamentarians, with due respect, they hardly study the bill, so that when they pass bills that affect Sabah and Sarawak, most of them separuh tidur agree. That's what happened to us. Kita punya teritori karena lepas, and all kita punya negara pun lepas. So this is a problem. So I will try to answer if there are questions again, but
Okay.
to move forward, I think the main focus should be Article 112C and 112D of the Federal Constitution that empowers us to have 40% of the federal revenue. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. Thank you, Dato. It's very illuminating as always, and we always want to hear what you say, but unfortunately we are starting to run out of time. Thank you, Philip, for giving the 3 minutes to Dato. Raymond, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. for that sharing on the events that leads up to the formation of MS63 and also what we should do next, moving forward. So before I introduce the next speaker, I would like to invite everyone for a group photo session. So can I invite everyone to switch on your camera, show your beautiful face, your handsome face, so that we can take this picture and then as a commemorative, not as a as a memory. So can I invite Richard? Can you take the photo? Richard, you count.
Richard,
Yeah,
are you there? Just as an aside, by the way, everyone, this is a very passionate session. Fantastic. I'm about to leave to head office. I've been called for an urgent meeting, but I will be joining you from the handphone, but I'll be muted. But I will leave Raymond, Boyd, and Richard to close the session later on. But I'll leave my laptop on. So if I'm there, I'm actually not there. I'll be on my handphone. But Richard have taken the picture. Richard?
Yep. Done already, Richard?
We have 3 pages.
Okay.
Richard, you're muted.
Okay, gentlemen, let's continue.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Richard. So before I introduce the next speaker, Ms. Vera Mopilin, to do her presentation, so I want to briefly introduce who she is. Vera was a member of the JCI Intan, Kota Kinabalu, the only ladies chapter in Malaysia. And she is the creator of the website called whoamisabah.com. Now, whenever you talk to her, she will tell you that she's a proud full-time homemaker. And Vera is the co-founder of the Sabah Way Forward, a campaign to spotlight current issues and maximizing talents, movers and shakers to discuss and educate through social media platform. So without further ado, I would like to invite Vera.
Oh, okay. I can share my screen now.
Sure, please do.
Okay. All right. Okay. Hi, everybody. Let me. This one. Okay. Sabah Way Forward is about building bridges, albeit a virtual one. We use digital platform because it encompasses a really large area. It is where it has many different components. The landscape available to us is very vast and varies. Good afternoon, my name is Vera Mopilin and I am the co-founder of Sabah Way Forward. Thank you, Tan Sri, Simon Sipaun, and Dr. James Digunjang for your sharing on Sabah just now. Listening to you makes our work mean so much more to us. We have a lot of work to do especially for our young to benefit. Okay, like that. Okay. Our mission is very simple. Our conversation, we start conversation. We make discussion happen. Let me do this. And we gather the movers, the shakers to converse and discuss live. So our audiences be it orang KK, orang Kota Belud, Penampang ataupun pendalaman can watch, comment and interact to make informed decisions on issues brought forward by our forums. In comes our vision, which is Sabah Way Forward will raise awareness of how Sabah can address why it is lagging behind in comparison to other states in Malaysia so that we can raise our living standards and economic standards. Right? Using the internet with our brand of creativeness and equal part analytical, we maximize our reach to Sabahans, be it in the city, the kampung, or even overseas, as long as they have one item, which is the handphone. In Sabah context, Malaysia MCMC, or Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Commission, the 2019 data states that almost 79% Sabahans have handphones. Okay. Okay, Sabah Way Forward is now developing a way to tie in all those different components using channels out there that are easily accessible using handphones. And what are our channels? We are on Facebook. But if you do not have Facebook, boleh ba kamu cari kami di YouTube? Kalau tiada YouTube, cari kami di Instagram atau Pinterest atau Twitter. You get the picture. We are on most of the popular social platforms out there. Find us and share with us, interact with us on our social media platform. For example, there's this one Sabahan lady. She has closed her Facebook account, but she has YouTube. Why she has YouTube? Because her grandchild watch YouTube videos, so she can watch our forums on YouTube. Okay, for our first project, which is an online conversation, it was with Datu Wira Lee Chong Wei, Malaysia's world badminton player, and with Puan Norida Othman, CEO of Sabah Tourism Board. We talked about the merit and demerit of Chong Wei being the ambassador, and also Puan Norida gave their point of view. Now, our latest conversation was on fixing hanging bridges is it government's job or is it ours? The issue went viral because of the Sungai Manila case where there were students having to tiptoe on a single cable on a hanging bridge to go to school. The panelists talked very passionately about this topic, highlighting the huge differences between states' basic infrastructure, especially in this 21st century. The other project we are concurrently doing is crowdfunding. We are raising funds to showcase Sabahan, highlighting their plights in the form of books and videos. You see, we want to be sustainable. We don't rely on a single source, but we branch out and we want to work and be sustainable, and therefore we come up with this t-shirt crowdfunding campaign. In fact, our t-shirt, which is this one, is limited edition with our logo, was sold out within a week because there's just so many support from Sabahans individually. So as an individual, you can actually, in the micro way, you can help associations or volunteers to work together and help all Sabahans. And then we went a step further with our t-shirt crowdfunding campaign. We asked those who support us, bought our t-shirt, to answer 5 simple questions and post them in our social media platforms. The questions are starting with, what is your name? Which part of Sabah are you from? Your current job, your position. And then this is the most important thing. This is where Sabahans or those support us can input and then share with everybody what they think. That is, the question is, how do you see Sabah now? And what is the way forward for Sabah? So far, the responses has been heart-wrenching. Like Marilyn Pamaja said, there is a need for a stronger government and to reduce corruption. Sabah is quite famous with this thing. Philip Thompson say, no improvement. Our state is the same as before. Now, to summarize my sharing, Sabah Way Forward has a very simple mission. We are working hard to attain our goals, which is to connect all Sabahan, no matter where they are, in the kampung, in the cities, in the world, no borders. We use a very cohesive strategy using easily accessible communication channel to reach out using the internet, print media, and radio, putting forward current issues, acting as a bridge between panelists and Sabahans. We hope Sabah Way Forward can at least make a tiny dent in elevating Sabah's voice. Okay, thank you very much. That's it. Hello.
Thank you, Vera. Yes, nice and short, very, very
Short,
interesting,
very short.
and worth looking more deeply into that. And ladies and gentlemen, please please join. There are several avenues there on social media that Vera has suggested. Come and join and then take part in this debate that we are discussing now. Now I'd like to go to the next speaker, Philip Golingai, who's very famous in our news media lately. And of course, he's waiting in bated breath because there's something going on in KL at the moment. So he might have to leave immediately, or hopefully he will finish his presentation as we go through. But I will just talk briefly. Philip is a news editor at the Star Media Group. He's writing 2 columns titled One Man's Meat and It's Just Politics. From 2006 to 2010, he was the Star's Thailand correspondent based in Bangkok. He also the editor of the Asia News Network, an alliance of 24 news organizations in 20 countries. That's quite a hefty number. Philip was the industry advisor for the Department of Journalism at Utah, and from 2016 to 19, and also now at the moment. He has won 4 Malaysia Press Institute Journalism Awards, and we are very happy to have him here. And we're hoping that he can give us a very good idea. But I think you will start to think deeper into this, what he's going to say, because it encapsulates what our previous speakers have said, but more enlightening, especially for me when I saw his presentation. So Philip, please go ahead. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Selamat petang from Kuala Lumpur. I'm a Sabahan who lives in Kuala Lumpur to enjoy all the benefits that we get from our state, Sabah. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to this prestigious forum. And I already bagi 3 minutes to Datuk James Ujang, so I shall have 7 minutes. Okay, today is a very simple subject that I want to. If there's a voice, I can hear a voice. Okay.
Ada yang mama mengirikan foto tu menghapusi itu.
Okay, just 1 minute. I think somebody tidak kena mute.
Mute kah?
Please mute.
I keep quiet for a while.
Ada yang mengirikan. Ada deh. Ini suara apa titik ini?
Okay, kan?
Okay, Philip.
Okay, sudah. Tidak. Yep. Okay, so I apologize for that. Ada technical matter pula. Ada orang, there was another voice. I thought I was hearing voices in my head. Okay, my topic today is very simple. It's called Sabah Politics 101. It's just simple politics lah about Sabah, but hopefully we see that Sabah punya politics ni is actually quite complex because of how we do things. Okay. For the peninsula punya, okay, just peninsula punya politics simple actually. It is in peninsula we have Malay, Chinese, and Indian. Tapi kalau di Sabah we have like Kadazan, Bajau, Suluk, Bugis, Murut, Bisaya, Rungus, Sungai, Lundayo, and banyak lagi. So the main thing about the before that, the main thing about the political analysts yang dari apa tu dia based in KL, for them is they find Sabah very complicated. For example, like in Vogue, they only do research in Peninsula. They do survey in Peninsula. They cannot do in Sabah because first of all, it's very costly, and number 2 is they don't understand actually because we have little things that is very Sabahan that they don't understand. Okay, then number 2, the other reason that Sabah is very complicated is I call it the Sabah alphabet soup of political parties. Kalau di KL, we only have macam UMNO, MCA, MIC, and then TKR, Amanah, Bersatu, and then the new ones that are like Parti Bangsa Malaysia and Muda Pejuang. Okay, so it's simple. Every day you read about it in Peninsular Malaysia, and then you understand the party. Tapi in Sabah, even the name, macam it's very close to each other. You see, PBS, PBRS, UPCO, PCS, SAPP, STAR, USNO, LDP, Warisan, and etc. Banyak lagi. And then plus ada lagi national parties. For example, UMNO, and then you have Bersatu, you even have MCA, and those are the main ones. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, that's one of the reasons that the national pollster, they avoid polling in Sabah. They usually get it wrong, actually. Even for the Kimanis by-election, one of the very credible polling think tank, they made a mistake in their prediction. They thought that Warisan will have won it, but actually UMNO won it. And I think I know what happened actually. The main reason is they ended their polling on, just say, Tuesday before the election on Saturday. So what they failed to do, or they forgot to do, which I kind of told them, I said, hey, you should factor in what happens on the night of on the night of Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Things can happen and things can change Sabah style. And then true enough, even like for us, we kind of had the indication on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that Warisan will have won the Kimanis by-election. Tapi ada swing itu. There was a bit of a swing because of certain things and certain things that Warisan did not do. Then we felt already that night, Friday night, we knew already that, not say we knew, but we already suspected that UMNO will have won. And fair enough, UMNO won the Kimanis seat against expectation. So the thing about Sabah politics is, for the political analysts or politician in Peninsular Malaysia, for them, Sabah is the known unknown, meaning dia tidak tahu lah pasal Sabah. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I was actually asked to talk about federalism and how it affects Sabah and Sarawak, but then I thought, alamak, it will take it'll be quite long and complicated, so I simplify this for you all. I will tell you the main differences between Sabah and Sarawak politics, and I'll tell you how I got this idea. In the year 2016, we were, we were hanging out, or we are having political discussion in this famous night spot in one of the big hotels there. I think it's called Rajang Bar. So I was with some Sabah politician, and then we were having brainstorming lah. And then I asked them, hey, what's the difference between Sabah and Sarawak politics? And then what we decided was this. Okay, first difference will be, it is the government itself. And even in 2016, it was true then, and then it is true even now. But okay, 2016, the Sarawak government was led by 4 Barisan Nasional parties. Okay, 4 Barisan Nasional party, but now it's led by the same party, but they changed the name to GPRS. So main thing is Sarawak government was headed and controlled by 4 local Sarawak parties. But the Sabah party, the difference is, even in 2016, it was controlled by Barisan Nasional, where you had parties like UMNO leading it. And then even now, it's the same. The Sabah government is under GRS, which consists of national parties like Bersatu, UMNO, and then the Sabah-based party, PBS, STAR, PBRS, and SFPP. So you see the difference. One is Sarawak, local parties yang control the state. Whereas Sabah party ini, it is controlled even now by national party, arguably. But I think there's a sense that this, after the Sarawak election, these Sabah politicians who are with national parties are now thinking, hey, maybe we should follow GPS in Sarawak, and then maybe we should formalize GRS, which is Gabungan Rakyat Sabah, to make it more of a local party similar to GPS. So that's the move. I think they're going to have a big meeting in Kudat soon. So maybe we will see a local coalition party governing Sabah, hopefully lah. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, then the second difference. The second difference is the Chief Minister of Sarawak is the CEO of the ruling party. What I mean is, Abang Joe, or even back then, it was Adnan Satem, the CM of Sarawak, was the president of Parti Bersatu Bumi Putra. No, Parti Pesaka Bumi Putra, which is PBB. So a Sarawak local party, its president was the CM of Sarawak. However, for Sabah, since the fall of PBS and then later the fall of Warisan, The Sabah CM has always been a branch manager. What I mean by branch manager is they are macam just say for example they are the Sabah chapter punya chief, and they report to their CEO, which is who is from Kuala Lumpur. So that's the difference. The CM is memang the CEO of a ruling party, whereas ours is a branch manager. So I think I shouldn't further explain lah too. Okay, then the third difference, this is quite these are coming from seasoned Sabah politician, and I memang agree with them lah. The problem, the difference of Sabah and Sarawak is this: there's a sizable photocopy Sabahan who are voters, whereas in Sarawak has mostly Ori Sarawakian voters. So I hope you understand the term. The term is photocopy and Ori. Ori for us is, if you're Ori Sabah means how to say memang kau dari Sabah lah. Memang your IC is genuine. Tapi if you talk about photocopy, it can mean that maybe, most probably, your identity card might be photocopied from somebody and then kena tukar a bit. But the strange thing is they might be voters. So like I think Tan Sri Simon Sipawan said that the non-Sabahans have done a reverse takeover of the state. Memang arguably he's speaking the truth lah, because even in an election, especially during the PBS time, there have been accusation by PBS that they are phantom voters, and then these phantom voters are photocopy Sabahan. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and then now you look at the Sabah MPs, the Sabah MPs. Okay, I hope this is the latest list, because you know lah Sabahan. Besok ada lagi lompat, and then ada ni. Tapi I've already factor in ni. You see, there's an independent number 1, that is the Lahadatu MP who was with Warisan, and he has jumped. So now he is, I put him as bebas. Okay, so you see, out of the 25 Sabah MPs, 7 are from Warisan, which is a Sabah-based party. 6 are from Bersatu, which is a national party. 2 are from UMNO, which is a national party. 3 are from DAP, national party. PKR 2, national party. PBS, Sabah Local Party, 1 saja. PBRS, Local Party, 1 saja. UFO, 1 saja. STAR pun 1 saja. And then Independent, 1 saja. So we go to the next slide. Okay, when you look at it, I hope my maths is correct, because today I think maybe a bit salah, tapi okay, something wrong with my maths, tapi I think you all understand a bit lah. The bulk of our MPs are from national parties, whereas the rest, the minority, are from Sabah-based parties. And then this is the thing. The thing is, if you are allegedly lah, but maybe our UMNO and Bersatu or DAP or PKR MPs will contradict me. I mean, okay, that's good. But arguably, they answer to their party, which is national-based party. And therefore, the national-based party think in that maybe bigger perspective, that is Malaysia. Tapi if you are from a Sabah-based party, which is maybe Sabah for Sabahan, maybe you see more of their Sabah interest. So what I'm saying is, our Sabah MPs are terikat terikat to their national party. It can be UMNO, it can be Bersatu, it can be PKR, it can even be DAP. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, the other thing that I also find a bit annoying is, like, whenever there's an election, even in Sarawak recently, or even the Sabah too, Peninsula voters, the one who were hoping that maybe Sabahans will vote for opposition, or they wanted their party to win, they always say, yeah, look at Sabahan, they're not so clever in voting. It is always about they are a bit primitive in their thinking. It's all about the blue tank, etc., etc. But for me, I disagree with them. Actually, if you look at us, we were way ahead of the opposition voters, who only in 2008 and then 2013 and then 2018, they voted against Barisan Nasional. Tapi Sabahan, if you look at it, since 1976, they can overthrow USNO, and then in 1985, Berjaya, which was a Barisan Nasional Party, was overthrown by PBS, which was the opposition, and that's where the famous quote by Dr. Mahathir was the Barisan Nasional chairman. He said, "We will sink or swim with Berjaya," and Berjaya sank, and I think Mahathir did not swim with them. But my point is, we have been, Sabahan, we have been voting and kicking out government through our what. So arguably, we can be quite, we are cleverer perhaps than the Peninsula voters, arguably. Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is another interesting thing also. It's sometimes like, this is a Sabah punya debate. Sabah punya debate. It is like they like to say, okay, who's cleverer actually, urban or rural voters? Then they will say, Allah, even Sabahans who are in the urban area, they'll say, Allah, you look at the rural voters, they kena bagi 50 ringgit lah, or 100 ringgit lah, kena bagi blue tank, and therefore they vote for a certain party. Then the urban voters think that they are cleverer. But sometimes for me, this is for argument's sake. The urban voters also can be not so clever. My argument is this. They actually do not care. If you look at the urban seats that the opposition won, the opposition won, is actually they voted for the party versus the candidate. But for me, it's arguably, sometimes in certain seats, for me, is if you ask me who I'll vote, my first choice will be the candidate and not the party. And then certain times they actually don't care. Actually, they are fed by just say, for example, the party decide on this candidate, and we all know already, alamak, why you put that candidate? Because we know he will jump. This is true. It's true story actually, but I better don't name that particular candidate that DAP put up. Then we knew already he's going to jump. But then DAP just forced the decision to the Sabah voters and said, no, you choose. We know you're going to vote for DAP, and therefore you will vote for us regardless of the candidate. And true enough, that candidate jumped. He shall remain not named, but sometimes I meet him in Luyang if I go for this famous roti kaya punya shop, as his office is nearby. Okay, so that's my whole point sometimes, that who is cleverer? This is the Sabah punya argument lah, rural ataupun urban. Tapi arguably for me is maybe rural clever or maybe urban clever, but we will know lah. Okay, thanks. Next slide. Okay, then the big thing about Sabah is the katak. And then this is the irony of Sabah actually. For example, Warisan Plus, they were fighting, this is their big slogan actually. Tolak katak, lindungi Sabah. Kukuhkan Sabah, katak kita jadikan pusas. Pusas, as you know, is good for with beer. Or is it beer is good with pusas? I'm not sure which one. So this is the irony of Sabah politics actually, and then the voters don't see it and the politicians don't see it while they say it. When you look at it, Sabah government has fallen all because of frogs actually. Make it the most famous one was in 1994. PBS won the seat, but then they were frogs and then they jumped. And then even in the year 2018, it's actually the Sabah government, arguably, some of my Warisan friends will argue against me, or Warisan Plus friends, but it was also made with frogs. And then even during the Warisan government, there were at least 10 or 11 political frogs that they piara by encouraging them to jump. So this is the sad thing about Sabah. And then when you look at it, recently we have two assemblymen who left an opposition party and now they are bebas. But the interesting thing when I talk to voters is, for them is actually, it depends on who jumps actually or who's the frog. So if just say they are pro in that particular party or that particular candidate, they'll be very forgiving. For them is that frog, that politician is not frog, that politician is not pusat, that politician is maybe doing us a favor. So the katak issue in Sabah is very subjective. I think next slide, please. Oh, somebody says here, Steve Mario. Sandakan to everybody. Oh, okay, I missed. Okay, that's all in terms of Sabah Politics 101. If you all ada soalan, maybe at the end, hopefully I will still be around to answer it. And to add into something, the big news that I thought was big news turned up to be anticlimax, and we kind of predicted it lah. If it was really a big news, that particular party, which is Bersatu and PAS, will have left the government and forced a GE15, but I don't think they dare do it at the moment lah. Okay, everybody, thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip. That was really you make it a very complex, politics in Malaysia simplify in such a way that I can really grasp it. And I was talking to my friend the other day when we talk about politics. He says, "Why watch drama and comedy when you have Sabah politics?" So, thank you, Philip. That was amazing sharing. So our next speaker is Dr. James Chin, Professor Dr. James Chin, who is a professor of Asian Studies. He is from University of Tasmania, Australia, but he is originally a Sarawakian. So Professor Chin is widely regarded as the leading scholar of contemporary Sabah and Sarawak. So he has published numerous publications on subject of his presentation today. So without further ado, I would like to invite Professor James Chin to with his presentation.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start off by thanking the organizers for the kind invitation to say a few words. So my thought is completely different from everybody else. I want to take a larger view of what's happening with Borneo. Given the fact that this is a Borneo forum, although the first 4 speakers were barely very Sabah-centric, I think I can just maybe widen the picture a bit so that we will have a wider perspective of what is happening. Given the very short time that I have, I just want to cover basically 2 huge areas. The first one is, I think it's very important when we talk about Borneo, we understand the basic data. From there, I want to move on very quickly to the geostrategic considerations when we talk about Borneo. And here, when I refer to Borneo, I'm referring to the entire island, not just Sabah, Sarawak, or Brunei. So when we talk about Borneo, I think it's very important that we understand that Borneo is actually the world's 3rd largest island. In terms of land size, it's about twice the size of Germany, so it's a huge piece of land. But yet, in terms of the population, it's actually very, very small. You have a population about only 24 million people spread across 3 countries. But even though we have a very small population, but in terms of biodiversity, Borneo is actually quite remarkable. In terms of land area, it's less than 1% of the world's land area, but it holds 6% of global biodiversity. There are 15,000 plant species that we know of. There are still many, many plant species that we do not know of. So that's the reason why you see a lot of botanists from the West, from the advanced countries. They come regularly to Kalimantan, to Sabah and Sarawak to study the biodiversity there. There has been 400 new species that's been found since 1994, and 222 mammals live there. And what is really important is that a quarter of them, 44 of them, are unique to Borneo. In other words, if Borneo does not exist, these animals will not exist. The other key data, which I think is important for the viewers now, is that Borneo plays a major role in terms of climate change. This has got to do with a very simple thing called carbon sequestration. In other words, the forest in Borneo basically sucking all the carbon dioxide and keep it there. And at night, of course, they release oxygen. We all understand that the loss of forests contribute around the world, contribute 30% of what we call the global greenhouse effect. This is the thing that basically causes the world in terms of climate change, the rise in temperature to happen. And this is a very, very serious issue. Even if the global temperature rise by 1%, we're talking about millions of lives at stake. Now, link on to this, right, about how important Borneo is in terms of biodiversity and a place for carbon sinking, right? There's this huge thing called the Heart of Borneo project. It always amazed me that very few people in Sabah and Sarawak and Brunei actually heard about this. So that's the reason why I bring it up. In fact, this is a major international agreement that covers the three governments found on the island of Borneo, which is Brunei, Darussalam, Indonesia, and Malaysia, and they signed an agreement to create this thing called Heart of Borneo project. This is a very important document because it shows that there's international recognition that we must protect as much of Borneo as possible because of all the reasons I gave earlier. And yet, ironically, the normal public, the Joe public on the streets of Sabah and Sarawak have never heard of this project. Now, in terms of political boundaries, I think it's very important, we go through the basic data. The states of Sabah and Sarawak in the Malaysian Federation only have about 7 million people. On the Indonesian side, the Kalimantan side, they only have about 17 million people. Brunei does not even reach 500,000. So we're talking about a total population only slightly above 24 million. For the rest of the world, I think most people have heard of Borneo. Places like, in Germany, the word Borneo is actually widely known. In places like Japan, is widely associated with a cartoon book. People, when they know about Malaysia, they've heard of Sabah and Sarawak, but all they know is that Sabah and Sarawak is located in East Malaysia, located on the island of Borneo. And a lot of people, of course, have heard of Brunei, because Brunei has been compared to as it's like those rich Arab states where there's abundance of oil money. So people have heard of East Malaysia, they've heard of Brunei. But the word Kalimantan is actually not widely known around the world until quite recently, and all because of this big media hype over a thing called Nusantara, supposedly the new capital of the Republic of Indonesia. The other basic figure I think is very important when we talk about Borneo is that 70% of Borneo comes under Indonesian control, actually 74%. And what is interesting about Kalimantan is that Kalimantan had lots of untapped natural resources. If you go beyond the city, the major cities of Kalimantan, like Samarinda, Balikpapan, all this thing, right? The entire piece of Kalimantan is really, really underdeveloped, other than the oil and gas industry, which is based in Balikpapan, which is the country hub. The oil and gas hub is actually, for Indonesia, is actually Balikpapan. And of course, I think one of the other speakers have mentioned that Kalimantan is actually split into 5 regions. So this gives you an idea how big the place is. 65% of the indigenous people, 65% of the population in Kalimantan are actually consists of the indigenous people. But there's also a huge percentage, about 30% of the population are actually non-indigenous. Now, when I tell people, these people are actually very surprised. They said that this place is so underdeveloped, so why do people move there? The major reason is that it's because of an Indonesian program called transmigracy, where the Indonesian state, the government itself, pay for the resettlement of poor people, mostly what we call land settlers. There's been a lot of misconception about this program. It was actually started by the Dutch, not by the current Indonesian government. It started by the Dutch. So approximately for the last 50, 60 years, they've moved about 3 million people to Kalimantan. And of course, the most prominent among them are the Maldives and the Javanese. This has led to a lot of conflict between the people from Java, Maldives, and the local population. And this led to the infamous ethnic conflict between 1999 and 2001, where about 4,000 people were killed. Overwhelming majority of those killed were people from the transmigracy program. Now, on the Sabah Sarawak side, of course, in the past decade, we've seen a lot of political awakening among the indigenous people of Sabah and Sarawak, the Diets of Sarawak, and the Kediat of Sabah. So it's all about state nationalism, like, for example, Sabah for Sabahans, Sarawak for Sarawakians. But in political science literature, we refer to this thing is basically self-determination. People asking for self-determination. And what is not widely known on this side, on Sabah and Sarawak side, is that this thing has been happening for a lot longer on the Indonesian side. But what is unusual is that you don't find calls for self-determination in Brunei. This only happens in Sabah Sarawak, and Kalimantan. So given the very limited time, let me quickly move to the geostrategic considerations of Borneo. One of the interesting things about Borneo and why it's so important is that Borneo is actually facing the conflict zone. And when I talk about the conflict zone, I'm talking about the South China Sea. Right now, as we speak, the big powers are competing. Big powers, basically China versus the West. They are competing about who controls the South China Sea. It is unfortunate that a lot of people in Sabah and Sarawak do not understand this conflict. Part of it is because there's been under-reporting of the conflict. Another reason is that there's a very high level of censorship from the Malaysian side in terms of reporting on this conflict. For example, there's been a lot of near tensions or warships between the Americans and the Chinese. They sail very close to each other. Their fighter planes fly very close to each other. So they sort of provoke each other, and it's happening quite regularly. The other area where it happens quite regularly is Chinese fishing boats enter Malaysian waters regularly. When I say regularly, I'm talking about more than 100 incidents a year. Their favorite place where they do a lot of fishing, interestingly enough, is a place called James Shaw, named after me. That's a joke, but it's located off the coast of Bintulu, James Shaw. So because of this, the big powers have a great interest in what happens in Borneo, especially in terms of Sabah, Sarawak, and Peninsula Malaysia, Malaya. The reason is people, if you adjust strategies, right, you look at it, first thing that you'll notice that Malaysia is the only country that surrounds the whole of the South China Sea. And of course, in terms of climate change and biodiversity, Borneo is very important as well. So the location itself is very important. Second is that I think a lot of people in Sabah and Sarawak do not realize that Borneo, in the middle of Kalimantan, is actually the center of the archipelago. This means that Borneo is surrounded by all the major waterways of Southeast Asia. So if you look at the South China Sea, Java Sea, Makassar, Celebes Sea, Sulu Sea, all this one way or another faces Borneo. In other words, if you talk about the maritime Southeast Asia, right, Borneo actually sits right in the middle of maritime Southeast Asia. And of course, maritime sea routes are very important. 80% of all the world's goods are shipped by containers. Another important geostrategic consideration, of course, is that Indonesia is becoming very, very important. Again, for all sorts of historical reasons, this is underreported in Malaysia. Many people do not realize that Indonesia is actually a member of the G20. G20 consists of the world's top 20 economies, and Indonesia is the largest economy in Southeast Asia. In fact, if you look at the purchasing power parity, Indonesia is the top 10 of the world's economy, number 7 at the present moment. And all indicators are that Indonesia will be the world's 4th largest economy by 2045. So that's only about like 20 years away. So it is not like, you're looking at something that's very, very far within the lifespan of many of us who are watching this seminar now. Now, of course, people are getting very excited about developments in Kalimantan, especially the advent of the new capital. So there's always a potential spillover from the strong growth in Indonesia to spill over, not only for Sabah and Sarawak, but for the whole region. But I think for me personally, I think what is really important in terms of development in Indonesia is that Indonesia is going opposite of what Malaysia is going through. Indonesia, if you look at all the recent studies done, show that Indonesians are actually getting more secular, they're getting more pluralistic, and in some ways they're getting more democratic, while Malaysia is sort of going the other way around. And of course, Indonesia has always played a leading role in ASEAN. In the coming years, it's even more important because Southeast Asia will be sitting between 2 giants. And when I talk about 2 giants, I'm talking about India and China. So there's no way to escape this. This is the geostrategic reality. And of course, Indonesia has a huge population, 250 million, huge untapped human resource. So in many ways, right, in terms of looking at Sabah and Sarawak, you really have to think about what will Indonesia do, because you really can't run away from 2 things. You can't run away from the Chinese shadow, and you can't run away from the Indonesian shadow. Now, I want to spend just a very, very brief minute on the capital Nusantara. I know there's a huge amount of interest, especially among the business community in Sabah and Sarawak, because they think, oh, this is a major development. The Indonesian government has earmarked 34 billion US dollars for this project. Sooner or later, some of it will spill into Sabah and Sarawak. My take is that you have to be very cautious. This may not happen, and I'll tell you the reason why it may not happen. The reason is, if you read the bill that was passed in the Indonesian Parliament recently, it says that the building of Nusantara will not start until 2024, right? What is 2024? 2024 is the year of the presidential election. In other words, in the first half of 2024, you will have a new Indonesian president. Jokowi cannot stand for the presidency. In Indonesia, they're smart enough to limit the presidency to 2 terms. Jokowi has been there for 10 years, and therefore, for whatever reasons, if the successor doesn't want the capital to happen, it will not happen, okay? So there are other reasons as well. I just don't have time to go into it. All I'm saying is that in terms of this, mad rush to say all these wonderful things about Nusantara and Kalimantan, you have to keep this at the back of your mind. It may not happen. And the other reasons why it may not happen is that the model itself is quite an interesting model. They're going to try to follow the Putrajaya model, which is the business capital will remain Jakarta, but administrative capital is in Kalimantan. The difference is Putrajaya, there's max highway that links Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya. You can get to Putrajaya in 1 hour. That is not possible between Jakarta and Nusantara. So I want to quickly finish off by talking about Brunei. Brunei, as you all know, has always been tied to oil and gas. And I think the questions in the future in terms of geostrategy analysis is that what will happen when the oil and gas runs out? Can the Bruneians find something to replace the loss in revenue? And also the question is, now, can the big powers guarantee the existence of Brunei? In terms of Sabah and Sarawak, I think we will see the continued rise of state nationalism. Early on, we had 2 speakers, Tan Sri Simon and Dr. James, who spoke about the historical grievances, the unhappiness, whether this will lead to a change in the structure of the federal-state relations in terms of the Federation of Malaysia, especially a special subset of federal-state relationship, a new structure just for Putrajaya, Kuching, and Kota Kinabalu, that still remains to be seen. In terms of Sabah, you have this unique issue, the PTI issue. The other thing is people get excited about the Borneo Highway. Will it be a game changer? Unfortunately, my answer is no, it will not be a game changer. What it will do is that it will make easier for transportation between Sabah and Sarawak, but it's not going to fundamentally change the economies of Sabah and Sarawak. I think for the older generation, I think the big question coming up is that will the next generation, the younger generation of Sabahans and Sarawakians, will they be more Malaysianized or Malayanized, or will they retain the special character of Sabahans and Sarawakians? And I think my good friend Philip has alluded to it in his concluding remarks to his presentation. And of course, the big worry among the older people in Sabah and Sarawak is that Malaya seems to be heading down towards ethnic and religious conflict, especially between the Muslim and non-Muslims. And the question is that will Sabah and Sarawak follow, especially when Malaya is sort of hell-bent on building a Malay Islamic state. And of course, the last point I want to make in terms of geostrategic considerations is that in the last 10 years, I've seen a very huge flow of talented people from both Sabah and Sarawak. They've gone outside the state simply because 2 things. They've lost faith in the ability of the state to manage. And secondly, they've also lost, lost faith in terms of the future potential for themselves. In other words, they think that their future will be a lot better outside the state. So I'm not talking about just migrating to Klang Valley. I'm talking about people actually leaving the country as a whole. Of course, the first point, if they want to retain close family links, they will move to Singapore. But I've seen a lot of top-notch human talent or human resource talent from Sabah, Sarawak that have disappeared to the West. And I can guarantee you for a whole host of reasons, these people can never move back to Sabah and Sarawak. No matter what you offer them, it is just not possible. I'm talking about in practical terms, to move back to Sabah and Sarawak. So I think to summarize, Borneo will becoming more important in the coming years, but it will take a long time to develop because as I try to impart to all of you, it is such a big, diverse and a big place. It's really huge, the third largest island in the world. The economic and infrastructure development in the coming years will be uneven. And part of the reasons why it's very difficult to build up infrastructure is because of the population remains very small, okay? 20 years from now, you will not get a population more than 50 million. It'll be a lot less than that, okay? Much of Borneo's political importance will also be dependent on what happens in South China Sea, where the open conflict breaks out, and of course, whether the new Indonesian administrative capital will be built. It is highly unlikely at the present moment, and also in the immediate future, that Sabah and Sarawak will benefit from Kalimantan's economic potential until certain links are resolved. And I'm talking about simple administrative issues, things like the border link issues. The borders are still not linked. There is still no free movement of goods and services and the people between Malaysia, Borneo, and Kalimantan. There is no road system linking us. The air linkage is uneven. For example, there's only one flight a day. 3 flights a week between Pontianak and Kuching, things like that. Okay, and of course, issues of self-determination or identity politics will remain unresolved in Sabah and Sarawak, and that, of course, will fit into how politics will run for the whole island as a whole, and especially relations between Sabah and Sarawak, federal capital, plus Sabah and Sarawak, and Kalimantan. And of course, the PTI issue, it is my contention that this issue will not be resolved in the next 20 years. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, James. Very, very, very good, if you like, enlightening presentation, because that's it sort of encapsulates what we've been talking about today. What you all know already that's happening around this region from Sabah and Borneo, and the grievances that are obviously happening even as we speak. So there's a lot of things that Sabah have problems with, and it could be to do with the peninsula or something else. But James' observation is very, very good. Of course, we are always happy to bring him along because he is such an giving us a different perspective from an outside point of view, if you like, from an academic in some ways, and helping us to learn what is happening in our own country. Because I said a country, this country of Sabah in that case. Now we literally run out of time, but hopefully it doesn't, the Eventbrite doesn't cut off us immediately. We have quite a number of questions on the chat box. I'm going to start with one, and then if there's time, we just continue for another 5 minutes or so, and possibly end at 4:40 if that is still possible. Richard, please let me know on this one. But first thing, the question raised by Godfrey Moy from KK, and he's saying, okay, we are reminded obviously from our first 2 speakers, or 3 speakers even, about Sabah's history and the mistakes our leaders have done in the past, and they haven't done enough possibly. So he's asking, what really can the average Sabahan do now, tomorrow, the next few months, and in the future? What do we need to do? So I leave it up to the panel. Perhaps I will ask Tan Sri to just say and answer this question before possibly another opinion from the audience or from the other panel. Tan Sri, can you answer that question, please?
Thank you, Boyd. I think for those people, young people who are eligible to vote, my advice to them, to be responsible and register as a voter and vote during the election, because that's the only way you can expect to see some changes in the personalities in government. Apart from that, I think you need to be conscious of what the government does and try and influence the government to practice good governance. And then I think the main problem at the moment, as I see it, is corruption. And by practicing good governance, I hope that corruption will be minimized. Thank you.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Dr. James, can you give an opinion, please, or honest answer?
Yes, I think what is very important is that Sabahans, the young generations of Sabahan, must have this paradigm shift in attitude towards the federal government. We must have the audacity to think as a nation so that we can safeguard the interests of the state insofar as what is provided in the Constitution. Just like the 40%. If we continue to ignore the provision of our entitlement in the Constitution, then Sabah will continue to beg for funds. I tell you, with a 40% entitlement, we will have billions and billions of ringgit to be spent on the development of Sabah. And mind you, this 40% is distinct from the normal allocation from the federal ministries to Sabah. This is different. Because in our agreement with, in the Malaysia agreement, it was clearly stipulated that Sabah will contribute only to the security and the maintenance of our foreign ministries overseas. Why was it agreed in such a manner? Because during that time we expect that we are still a sovereign state, and that our chief minister, which is akin like a prime minister, will visit foreign countries, establish bilateral relations aside. We will have to use the foreign office. But now we have been reduced to one of the minor 12 and 13 states. That's why Act 7 A354 is extremely important to return the status of Sabah as negara. Why? Because when you become a negara, you are a sovereign state. With a sovereign state, none of these UMNO parties past will be in Sabah, because that will constitute as interference into the political affairs of a sovereign country. That we should encourage our state government, our MPs to fight ferociously for the return of the status of the state into negara. That's why I have been encouraging the state government to revoke the amendments to Article 1 of the state constitution, so that the state of Sabah will be returned as the negara of Sabah. So the main issue, all this while, since we formed Malaysia, has been funds. But it was provided in the constitution, but we ignored. It's unfortunate that our politicians before has been very irresponsible not to really fight for the 40%. They are more concerned about maintaining their position or for fear of political, what I call repercussion, if they insist on that. That's why, for the future of Sabah, for the future, if we want to bequeath Sabah as a prosperous state to the next generation, this generation must ensure that this 40% must be returned to Sabah immediately.
Okay.
And one more last thing is that I would like to mention is that we have been, regarded as a vassal state. That's why I said, for us to think, to have the audacity to think as a nation, I'm sure our mindset will change to protect more of the interests of the state. Thank you very much.
Well done, Dr. James. Okay, Raymond, I'll pass it to you now.
I see another question here. It's from Vanita from Penampang. She asks, Is there any program outlined by the Sabah Way Forward to unite all the political parties here in Sabah? So I don't know. Perhaps I can forward this to Philip. What do you know of any such program?
Okay, unite Sabahan politician. I think that's really difficult because the problem with Sabah politician, I think it's I think that James has spoken about it, and he's a real politician because he has played politics before as an assemblyman. I think the sad thing is it's all about self-interest. It's kita jaga kita sendiri and not kita jaga kita. So I think we have to get rid of the mentality, but this is I'm encouraged actually what Tan Sri Simon Sipaun said about the young. I think our future is in the young. The young actually want something clean. That's what they want. So for me is I think it's about time we get rid of dinosaurs and we think of young what. So that's why sometimes don't get too engrossed with the party of the party and vote for the party. Do vote for the candidate. They are good candidates there who are in the wrong party, but there are also bad candidates there who are in the right party. So, okay, I think we should have more discussion, real political discussion on, I mean, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. I think we should KPI them. Actually, roughly you will know, actually, which one young, when elected will jump and will not. Sudah predicted sudah tu. There are some lah. For example, I dare say, there are like one politician, macam Kapayan assemblyman. I don't think she will jump. And I think we know her. So it's very unlikely she jump. I hope, Johnny, you don't prove me wrong. Itu saja. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. Actually, she told me that she was going to join this event, but perhaps she got laid somewhere else. Vera, any comments on this one? From your point of view, as a young person, I guess, put it that way.
For me, okay, younger generation might find it a bit difficult to go into politics because it's big. In Sabah alone, it's basically being monopolized by our older generation. But instead of thinking politics answering to Sabah's woes, why don't we go into a mindset where we go into commercial? Instead of Sabahans relying on the government, why not government relying on Sabahans? So this is my view on Sabah's politics at the moment.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to let you know that in the audience earlier, in the first hour, we were very fortunate to have His Excellency Marahiko Horie, who is actually the former ambassador of Japan to Malaysia, and is a good friend of mine, and he joined it earlier because he's very interested in Borneo. And I'm hoping that at some point we can bring him to the forum and speak from his point of view, his unique point of view relating to Malaysia in this case, and Borneo in particular. So, and of course, the other person that I noticed is still in our audience is Dato' Adeline Leong. Hello, ma'am. It's good to have you here. Dato' Adeline is actually the new head of the Institute of Development Studies Sabah. I don't know if you can hear me, but would you like to ask a question or a comment from today's event? Perhaps she's engaged in no one. Henry, I notice you are also online. Would you like to mention a little bit, because I think it's relevant to the question that was spoken of earlier. Would you like to talk a little bit about what Sabah is doing, please? And Henry's gone quiet as well. All right, I think he's possibly gone. Raymond, do you have another question from the audience?
No, but however, I have one question that I think is...
hello, this is Adeline Leong. Sorry, I could not turn on my video, but I
Okay.
just like to comment and congratulate the organizers for holding this session. I was just telling Tan Sri Simon, who has alerted me to this session, that it is really a very excellent session. And I know that, you know, whoever is listening to this, they're really fired up, and because there's so much knowledge gained from here that, and hopefully that this session can motivate us to do more for Sabah. Because as we know, you know, truly sometimes as an ordinary citizen, politics is out of our hands, except during the election. But in between, we can do our bit. We can do our bit because we look at what Sabah is facing now. You know, we need, because of COVID, the downturn of our economy. You know, we're at our lowest ebb, and it is up to us individually. The way Sabah forward is to turn Sabah's economy around. And citizens of Sabah, we can do it if we all do our own bit, helping the young entrepreneurs, helping, you know, don't, as what is it now, Vera says, don't have to keep looking at the government for support, looking at the government for handouts, looking at the government to see what they can do for us. No, we should do it the other way around. What we can do for Sabah, what can we do for the government? Don't have to depend on the government, but depend on ourselves. And, you know, we really have to change our mindset and get the younger generation to start moving and start, as you say, moving Sabah the way forward. Our style, not the government style, not the politician style, but our Sabahan style. So if we can come up with this, I'm saying in general, but at least think along that line. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adeline. There's a question for Professor James. Sabah has the biggest and most important assets in natural resources like the biodiversity. Now, how should we capitalize on these without destroying them in the process?
I don't think it's true that Sabah has the what do you call it, the bank for the diversity. I think it's for the island as a whole. It's not only for Sabah. As to what can be done, I think one of the reasons why the West is very rich is because they own a lot of IPs. In other words, they map out all these things and they commercialize it. And this is where we are extremely bad. If you look at Malaysian universities spend more money on PR than actually on hard R&D. If we really want to make money from the forest, right, the first thing you need to do is to build a IP database and also to register all those things. That can only be done at the governmental level. But I think one of the things that Philip did not alert to earlier in his presentation is that one of the reasons why it's very difficult for the Sabah government to move things forward is not only the presence of peninsula-based parties in Sabah, but one of the key reasons is that Sabah political parties and politicians don't have any tenure. They get shoved very, very often. And one of the problems with this sort of system is that in politics in Sabah and Sarawak, as you know, right, everybody belongs to a certain network. So if your patron moves out, everybody moves out. If your patron moves out, everybody moves out. So one of the unusual things, well, not unusual, but one of the things about you see in Sabah is that because the government changes so often, right, there is no continuity in the high end of business in Sarawak. So in other words, right, if I'm a very successful Sabahan, I work in this field of whatever it is, turning medicines from the forest or studying forest, right? Why would I want to make a 30-40 million US dollars investment in Sabah? Because there's no guarantee when the GRS government falls in the next election, right? All my efforts have gone down the waste because the new government will not play ball with me. And this is a taken, there's just no continuity. So I think this is something that it's a problem that plagues the entire Malaysian system. but it's especially acute in Sabah. But if you look at Sarawak, right, Sarawak has basically ruled by Barisan Nasional since 1970. And if you look at some of the major business houses in Sarawak that was built up first by Rahman Yaakob and later on built up by Tak Mahmud in the 1980s, right? A lot of them are now multinationals around the world. I mean, with extensive holdings overseas. I'm not saying that this is not crony capitalism. It is crony capitalism, but I'm saying that there is a certain degree of certainty in the business that allows business to make long-term investments. I don't see that happening in Sabah, and it is something that really Sabahans have to think about. The other thing in terms of moving forward, I always tell my friends in Sabah is that one of the things about Sabahans and Sarawakians that you have to stop thinking of Sabah for Sabahans and Sarawakians to stop thinking of Sarawak for Sarawakians. When it comes to Putrajaya, right, I do not understand why the Sabah government cannot talk to the Sarawak government. It seems very strange that there is no common position between the Sabah government and the Sarawak government when they face Putrajaya. If you look at what's been happening in the last 3 or 4 years, right? Sarawak under Abanjo has got a lot of concessions from Putrajaya. And if you notice that the Sabah government keep quiet, and the only answer they will give is that whatever concessions given to Sarawak, Sabah will get it sooner or later, which I thought is a very strange answer. The correct answer is that Sabah and Sarawak should put on a united front. And I've personally been experienced this before. Because a lot of my Sabahans ask me, why are you so interested in Sabah politics? It's as if only people like Philip is allowed to talk about Sabah politics, but non-Sabahans are not allowed to talk about Sabah politics. This is a very strong sense of state nationalism. I can understand that. But state nationalism, the sort of stuff I'm talking about is that you go into foolish territory where nationalism itself impede your development, which I thought is a funny thing. But I think in terms of making money from the forest, first thing you need to do is actually set up the platform in place that allows people to map what is available in the forest and to IP those stuff. Right now, as far as I know, all the big items that came out of Borneo, right, the ones that I'm aware of that has been highly commercialized, right, they're all taken by Western scientists who went into the forest, took the materials to the West, IP the product, and this is how they made the money. And I don't know why it's so hard for our universities to do a similar thing. Maybe some of your other guests here can enlighten me. Thank you.
Can I just add to what James said about the Borneo unity?
Yes, please.
Okay, I think it's we all assume that Borneo, that is Sabah and Sarawak, are united. But my experience when I go to Sarawak, actually the Sarawakians do not really see or think much of Sabah. Actually, they see Sarawak as a big country and they move on their own. If just say Sarawak goes independent, they go independent on their own. They won't go independent with Sabah. So I think to answer the question why Sabah and Sarawakian politicians are not united again to fight for their rights with Putrajaya is because Sabahans see themselves as Sabahan. Maybe they favor a bit of Sarawak, but I noticed the Sarawakian politician, no, not really. Unless maybe Nancy Shukri, who has a hubby who is a Sabahan. Itu saja. Thanks.
Since we're all telling the truth now.
James, you were not telling the truth, is it?
No, I try to be polite and not offend too many people. Okay, I'll be brutally honest. I mean, I've spoken at length with some of the most senior politicians in Sarawak, and the reasons given to me is that they said that we cannot trust the Sabahans too much because whatever deal we tell them, right, even before the deal is agreed on, by the morning, people in KL already knows, and I think you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay, Raymond, over to you.
Okay, how are you doing with the timing now?
We got a hand raised. Muthu, bro, you ask question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear?
Yes, very loud and clear.
Okay, good. Because my observation so far, there cannot be any change thanks to Dr. Adeline Leong talking about we should do and you don't wait for the government. But without the government participation, nothing can move in Sabah, especially Sabah. Everything is politics. And we have the worst kind of politicians because every time something goes wrong, a new party comes in, they fight. We are fighting for the people, Sabah for Sabahans, all this nonsense. After coming to power, all they do is rape the state. Dr. Tan Sri Simon said it, corruption. You want to move Sabah forward, get rid of corruption. Corruption, two sources of corruption is patronage. It must be criminalized. It's a crime for any leader to take anything from the state, no, whether directly or indirectly. And the other thing is negotiated tender. Negotiated tender is a crime. Country Simon has told me so many times, it's against the law. How do the politician do it? If you get rid of these two things, if you criminalize these two things, you may get some honest politicians who actually get elected to serve the people. Now, all they do is when, after getting elected, is serve themselves. Dr. James can give you a good example. What did their party do? What did they do for themselves? How much did they make for themselves? What did the common man, the Karazan in the hills get from PBS rule? Under PBS rule, there was so much of land lost to big companies, even those reserved for small timers. Dr. Harris reserved 1 million acres to be given to landless, 15 acres each. Even that was lost. I mean, they speak great, but when in power, it's all themselves. I'm sorry to say, I'm very bitter looking at all these politicians. I mean, we have talented people in Sabah. They talk great in coffee houses, bars, hotels. Why don't they step forward, stand united? Sabah for all Sabahans, not selected Sabahans. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mutu, for your sharing of your how you feel about the current situation and how we should move forward from there. There's one question here. I think it's quite relevant because when you say change, we are talking about we hope that the young generation will take up the change to make the change. So there's a question here from Darren from UIT MKK. He's asking, should university students have the right to be involved in any political activities that would cite them to be more aware on the current issues that are happening in our country? So he's saying that the reason I asked is because of the university and the University College Act 1971 restrict university students from participating in politics. Any of the speakers?
I think now we are 18-year-old are permitted by law to vote or even participate in politics. So those above 18, if you are even as a student, I believe you can participate in politics. There will be no restriction because the law provides you to be able to vote and also participate in politics. So that answers the question. But just to add on to Professor James Chin on the so-called benefits to Sabah on the relocation of the Indonesian capital to Kalimantan. A lot of people say, oh, Sabah will benefit. But I have my reservation because Sabah, I think there will be a transmigration of Indonesians from Sabah who are in the thousands working in the plantation sectors will move back to reverse migration, move back to Kalimantan because there will be a lot of economic activity once what I call the capital of Indonesia is relocated in Kalimantan. So we must be very worried that we will have a problem with our plantation sectors once the reverse migration happens. And secondly, our oil resources is not a finite resources. In the next 15 years, just like Brunei, our oil resources will be depleted. So if our generation don't ask for the 40% entitlement, then we'll continue to beg. Then to beg from the federal government, it will not change our position. That's why all this hinge to the development of Sabah hinge on the 40%. There's a saying, those who has the gold holds the key. It's very true. If you have the gold, it empowers you. So the new generation or our new group of politicians must be fully aware and responsible on the rights of Sabah in the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. James. Okay, I think that's about time for today, and I really thank you for all the questions that have been raised and the sharing of your thoughts on your subject matter. For the closing, I would like to invite now Boyd to give his closing remark for this forum.
Thank you, Raymond. Yes, it's because Ken is on the way to Birmingham, so he can't join us because otherwise it's too loud for him. Anyway, he's still online, so we'll go ahead. I won't give you a complete summary here because it's still fresh in everyone's mind. There's some very exciting quotes, if you like, if you want to say that, and very, very strong, passionate speakers, as well as audience. And the fact that you guys have stayed this long means that this topic is really, really worth talking about and airing and sharing. And because I think generally we are all very passionate Sabahans and Malaysians too. And we want to do something good for Sabah. And literally, there's a lot that we can do from now on. We can always use the part as a reference point, as I always mention in all my other talks as well. But the future is the important thing, what we need to do, how we are moving forward, and it needs to be a tangible thing that we need to do from now on. And as Dr. Adeline was saying, it's about us, how we can do this on behalf or to work with the government. We can't rely anymore on government necessarily. We can advise, we can do something, but more tangible is how we're going to do it on the ground. Something that we can see, whether it's economically, politically, less maybe, but in terms of socially, wealth sharing, in terms of environmental factors. All of these are relevant to the island of Borneo, and we have to preserve this third largest island. And that's the whole reason for this Borneo Forum existence last year from the very beginning. And the topics that we go for this is very much to do with how we're going to move on from where we are now. And I think there is a lot of talent in this group, and those who are listening and later on listening on our YouTube channel, as well as on Facebook, there's a lot that we can gather, get together, do something. And in the BF10, Borneo Forum 10 last year in October, just before the COP in Glasgow, I proposed together with the team a declaration of the environment. So we are thinking along those lines, although it's just something that we talked about in the run-up to this forum, is something on a declaration of some kind relating to the topic and relating to Borneo itself. May not necessarily be about environment, but something else, whether it's to do with economics that we are trying to do, and investment, especially given potentially that the new capital could be in Kalimantan. And like James was saying, that Professor James, here people will gravitate to the island of Borneo. It's so centralized, and I totally agree with him on that. It's so centralized in terms of the waterways, the flights from all over the place. This could be the area, Sabah and Borneo could be the focus of attention in the next number of years. One of the things I'd like to share with you is, like last year, there was quite a few number of my old workplace called the my old movement, Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Industry. Now that one, it's a very strong international brand, but they're looking at Borneo, and they're looking at Sabah and Sarawak and Brunei and Indonesia. as potential for this kind of important place that they want to focus attention on is in terms of economics, but more on environment, diversity, and energy. So this is an area that we will be focusing on in the next series that we want to do. But in terms of the content of today's topic, very, very topical from our point of view. And we are very happy to have such 5 wonderful, very well experienced speakers in their own right. They have a reputation, great reputation as defenders and champions of Sabah and Borneo. So this is something, the crux of the thing that we want to say, how important it is that we move on as a people. In this case, we're talking about Sabah, obviously, but also more importantly, our standing in Malaysia and our standing in the whole world. We can do it by ourselves, whatever you call it. It could be self-government, stronger position in ourselves, like Sarawak is doing, talk to Sarawak more. And we have to do something with these demands that Dr. James was talking about. It might not really happen in my view, but because maybe I'm getting older, I don't know that it will get us that far ahead. Nevertheless, from the debate that we have talked about today, from the presentations, there is so much here that we can move on with and to do something much more tangible. Instead of just talking, which is good, we highlight all the things that we want to say. Now, the next bit that we are hoping to do through the forum is, what can we do? What are the important things that we can highlight and possibly elevate Sabah's status with regard to the region and the rest of the world? So this is something that I want to come back to at some point, and we want to share during the next few months of the forum. The next one, of course, is BF14. Now, I'd like to bring in one of our management team, Simon Christopher. He's actually I would say he's a Kadazan by all intents and purposes, although he comes from Kent in the UK, but he's been in Sabah. He's married to a Sabahan, of course, and a Kadazan. So he's very well versed. I'm not sure about his Kadazan though, or Dusun, but nevertheless, Simon, tell us about the BF14 that you're going to share, which is part and parcel of what we want to do for Sabah and Borneo. Thank you.
Thanks, Boyd. Appreciate it. And really appreciate everyone's contribution on this session. Very stirring, very meaningful. And the follow-up from my side, I have been here since I moved to Sabah in 1995. I'm a marine biologist, and the biodiversity of Sabah and Borneo is what brought me here, and I never left. So I came here and I set up Scuba Zoo, and have been involved in a couple hundred hours of programming with the BBC, National Geographic Discoveries, set up scubazoo.tv, brought Sir David Attenborough here a few times, and really championed Sabah and tried to bring Sabah to the world's attention. And since leaving Scuba Zoo in 2019, I've launched Blue Hope, and we have started Sabah Plastic Neutral as part of a movement at the beginning of UNESCO Ocean Decade and UN Decade of Restoration, which is essentially tackling the growing environmental problems, but from Sabah being the most biodiverse, most valuable state in Malaysian location in the Coral Triangle, and tackling plastic. And what we're looking to do next month is launch KK Plastic Neutral. We have an MOU with DBKK, and there will be an announcement of Love KK, a new project from DBKK. I can't say too much about it, but we'll be launching this next month with Big Splash and a number of visiting ambassadors. And it really is Sabah leading the charge. And our first initiative is education awareness, Water's Life, Rethinking Plastics, with some amazing messaging, including Sir David Attenborough and Maya Karin translating into Bahasa. And we're looking to roll out a Rethinking Plastics across all 1,296 schools. And it's very exciting. It's taken the last couple of years to put together. And after a year of talking and wheel spinning, next month it really gets things going, and we got traction. So looking forward to seeing you all again around about this time next month, and sharing the good news with Sabah leading the charge with Sabah Plastic Neutral and KK Plastic Neutral. Thanks, Boyd. Back to you.
Right. Thank you, Simon. Raymond, okay, I'll leave it up to you for the wrap up. Thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon, for sharing your upcoming projects or what you're going to do in Sabah. And to our 5 very special speakers, thank you, Tan Sri Simon Spaun, Datu James Inggujan, Vera Mopilin, Philip Golingai, and Professor James Chin for giving your time for this session. But most importantly, I would like to thank you, the audience, the listener that tune in to this program, because without you, this program does not exist. So keep the conversation going, focus on what you can do, what we can do, and see you in the next BF14.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. Konsi Fachoy.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you so much for the session.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Boyd.
Congratulations, Raymond and Boyd.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Great
Thank
job.
you. Sorry, I didn't mention you, but you put this together. I'm sorry, I forgotten to mention you.
It's okay. And thank you for all the speakers. Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks a lot.
I'll see you again.
We should give a special session to Simon. He
Yes.
has a beautiful dream for Sabah, but he needs full support. Full support.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
We're planning a session for him.
Oh, good.
Yes.
I think next month, right? Next month
Yeah.
is Simon's session.
It all begins next month. Thanks, Motu. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Motu, for your.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This is Ken, actually still calling from London Underground, just about to go to Underground on the way to Birmingham. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Take care, everyone.
Take care. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Good weekend.
Bye.
Bye all.
Richard, you can end the call, yeah?